Sometimes the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't a lawsuit or a protest. It's a smartphone and the courage to use it. Hey everyone, if you're new here and enjoy stories about standing up to workplace bullies and corrupt bosses, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happened next in this incredible journey. If you've been following my channel, you know I don't back down from injustice. And today's story is no exception. Let's dive into how one 2-minute video recording changed everything at my Silicon Valley company. My name is Charlie Davidson, and I'm 41 years old. For the past 8 years, I've been working as a senior software engineer at Technova Solutions, a mid-sized tech company nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley, right off Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park. It's one of those glass and steel buildings you see everywhere around here, filled with ping pong tables, energy drinks, and the constant hum of innovation, or so they want you to believe. I've seen a lot in my 8 years here. Startups rise and fall, brilliant minds come and go, and unfortunately, power-hungry executives who think they're untouchable. But nothing prepared me for what I witnessed last spring, and how that moment would lead to one of the most satisfying revenge stories of my career. It was a typical Tuesday morning in March when she walked into our office. Lily Chen, 20 years old, fresh out of UC Berkeley with a computer science degree, and radiating the kind of enthusiasm that only comes from someone who still believes the tech world is going to change everything for the better. She had been hired as a summer intern in our software development department, and from day one, it was clear she was special. Lily wasn't just smart, she was hungry. While other interns spent their lunch break scrolling through social media or playing foosball in the break room, Lily would corner senior developers with thoughtful questions about our codebase. She'd stay late, not because she had to, but because she genuinely wanted to understand every aspect of our projects. I remember thinking she reminded me of myself when I first started in tech, before the industry's darker side showed its face. She had this way of lighting up when she talked about algorithms or database optimization that made even the most cynical developers smile. Within 2 weeks, she had already impressed our entire team with her debugging skills and fresh perspectives on problems we'd been struggling with for months. But there was something else about Lily that I noticed, something that would later make what happened even more disturbing. Despite her obvious intelligence and capability, she was incredibly shy when it came to authority figures. She'd practically shrink whenever our department head walked by, and she seemed genuinely intimidated by the executive team. Our CEO, Henry Morrison, was a different story entirely. Henry was the type of Silicon Valley executive you've probably heard about. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suits, and the kind of charisma that could charm investors out of their money. He'd built Technova from the ground up over the past 12 years, and everyone knew he had a reputation for being, let's call it hands-on with his management style. What do you think about first impressions in the workplace? Have you ever met someone who immediately gave you bad vibes, even when everyone else seemed to love them? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your experiences, because mine were about to prove tragically accurate. The incident happened on a Thursday afternoon in late April. I was coming back from a client meeting downtown, and the office was unusually quiet since most people had already left for the day. It was around 6:30 p.m., and I needed to grab some files from my desk before heading home to my apartment in Mountain View. As I walked down the hallway toward my cubicle, I heard voices coming from Henry's corner office. The door was slightly ajar, which was unusual. Henry always kept his door closed during private meetings. Something about the tone of the conversation made me slow down. There was an urgency, a tension that didn't sound like a typical business discussion. That's when I heard Lily's voice, and immediately, I knew something was wrong. "Mr. Morrison, I really should get back to my project," she was saying, but her voice was shaky, uncertain. "The deadline is tomorrow and I still have." "Lily, relax." Henry's voice cut her off, smooth and patronizing. "You've been working so hard. You deserve a break. Besides, I think we should discuss your future here at Technova. You know, I have a lot of influence over intern placements and full-time offers." I stopped walking. Every instinct I had was screaming that this conversation was heading somewhere it shouldn't. I moved closer to the door, staying out of sight but positioning myself where I could see through the gap. What I saw made my blood run cold. Henry had positioned himself between Lily and the door. She was backed against his desk, clutching a laptop to her chest like a shield. Her face was pale, and I could see her hands trembling slightly. Henry was standing far too close, one hand on the desk beside her, effectively trapping her. "You know, Lily," Henry continued, his voice taking on a predatory tone I'd never heard before. "Pretty girls like you don't usually struggle to find opportunities in this industry. But it helps to know the right people, to make the right impressions." "I just want to do good work," Lily whispered, and I could hear the fear in her voice. That's when Henry reached out and touched her arm, running his hand down to her wrist in a way that was unmistakably inappropriate. Of course you do. And I can make sure you get the chance to do excellent work, if you're willing to show me that you're a team player. The implications were crystal clear, and Lily's terrified expression told me she understood exactly what he was suggesting. My hands were shaking with rage, but my mind was calculating. I could burst in there right now, but then what? It would be my word against his, and Henry Morrison wasn't just the CEO. He was beloved by the board, respected in the industry, and had the resources to destroy my career with a few phone calls. But I had something Henry didn't know about. Moving as quietly as possible, I pulled out my iPhone and opened the camera app. My hands were steady now, focused by purpose. I positioned myself at the perfect angle where I could capture both Henry and Lily in the frame, making sure the audio would pick up their conversation clearly. For the next 2 minutes and 15 seconds, I recorded everything. Henry's hand moving to her shoulder. Lily's increasingly desperate attempts to deflect his advances. His thinly veiled threats about her internship. Her obvious discomfort and fear. Every second of it, captured in high-definition video with crystal-clear audio. Think about it, Lily, Henry was saying as I hit the stop button. Your performance review is coming up next week. I'd hate for it to disappoint. That was enough. I couldn't stand there and watch any longer. I knocked loudly on the doorframe and pushed it open, my face arranged in what I hoped looked like casual concern rather than barely contained fury. Hey Henry, sorry to interrupt, I said, stepping into the office with my phone safely tucked away. Lily, there you are. The rest of the dev team was looking for you. We've got that critical bug that needs fixing before tomorrow's demo. The relief on Lily's face was immediate and heartbreaking. Henry stepped back, his expression shifting from predatory to merely annoyed in the span of a second. A transformation that told me this wasn't his first time being interrupted in a situation like this. Charlie, Henry said, his voice tight with controlled irritation. I was just having a career discussion with our intern here. Of course, I replied, maintaining eye contact with him. Lily, why don't you head back to your desk? I'll be right there to help with that code review. Lily didn't need to be told twice. She practically fled from the office, muttering thanks as she squeezed past me. Henry's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw something cold and calculating in his eyes. Charlie, I hope you understand that what you think you just witnessed was a CEO mentoring a promising young intern, I interrupted smoothly. Nothing more than that, right, Henry? We stared at each other for a long moment. He was trying to read me to figure out how much I'd seen, how much I knew, and whether I posed a threat to him. Exactly, he said finally. I trust that's all anyone else would understand it to be as well. Absolutely, I lied. Have a good evening, Henry. As I walked out of that office, my phone felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. I had evidence. Solid, undeniable evidence of sexual harassment by the CEO of our company. But I also knew that using it would likely end my career at Technova, and possibly in Silicon Valley altogether. What would you have done in that moment? Would you have confronted him immediately, or would you have taken time to plan your next move? Let me know in the comments because what I decided to do next changed everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's terrified face and heard the predatory tone in Henry's voice. By morning, I had made my decision about what to do with the video, but I also knew I needed to be smart about how I handled it. The next day at work, I watched Lily carefully. She was different. Quieter, more withdrawn. She avoided eye contact with everyone and jumped whenever someone approached her desk. During our team stand-up meeting, she could barely concentrate on the status updates, and I noticed her glancing nervously toward Henry's office whenever his voice carried down the hallway. I waited until lunch to approach her. I found her sitting alone in the parking lot, picking at a salad in her car. Hey Lily, I said, tapping gently on her window. Mind if we talk for a minute? She looked up, startled, then rolled down the window. Oh, hi Charlie. I was just eating lunch. Listen, I said, keeping my voice low and gentle. About yesterday evening. Are you okay? Her face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Mr. Morrison was just... We were just talking about my internship. Lily, you don't have to pretend with me. I saw enough to know that wasn't a normal conversation. She was quiet for a long moment, staring down at her hands. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. "I need this internship, Charlie," she whispered. "My family. They're depending on me to get a good job after graduation. If I make trouble, if I complain about Mr. Morrison, who's going to believe me? He's the CEO. I'm just an intern." My heart broke for her, but it also solidified my resolve. What if I told you that you wouldn't have to be the one to make trouble? What if there was another way? She looked at me with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "What do you mean?" I couldn't tell her about the video, not yet. It was too dangerous, and I needed to protect her from any potential blowback. "Just trust me, okay? Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "What do you need me to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Just keep doing your excellent work and try to avoid being alone with Henry. If he asks for private meetings, always bring someone else or suggest meeting in a public area of the office." "Okay," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Charlie, thank you for yesterday. For interrupting. You don't need to thank me for that." That afternoon I started planning my strategy. The video was powerful evidence, but I needed to think about timing and consequences. Henry Morrison wasn't just going to roll over because I had damaging footage. He would fight back, and he had resources I couldn't match. I spent the weekend researching everything I could about workplace harassment laws in California, company policies at Technova, and Henry's background. What I discovered was disturbing but not surprising. There had been whispers about Henry for years. Former female employees who had left suddenly, interns who had disappeared mid-program, NDAs that seemed unusually comprehensive for standard employment agreements. I also did something else that weekend. I made copies of the video file and stored them in multiple secure locations. Cloud storage, external drives, even emailed an encrypted version to my personal attorney with instructions not to open it unless something happened to me. On Monday morning, I came into work with a plan. I would document everything, build a case, and when the time was right, I would act. But I would do it smart, and I would make sure that when Henry Morrison fell, he would fall hard enough that he could never hurt another young woman like Lily. But Henry, it turned out, was planning his own move. Tuesday morning, I badged in at the front entrance like I had every day for 8 years. The little green light flashed, I heard the familiar beep, and I pushed through the turnstile toward the elevators. Except this time, the light stayed red, and instead of a beep, I heard an error tone. I tried again. Red light. Error tone. "Excuse me, sir." The security guard, Marcus, was walking toward me. I'd known Marcus for years. We'd chatted about his kids, talked sports, shared stories about weekend projects. But today, his face was serious, almost apologetic. "Marcus, what's going on? My badge isn't working." "I'm sorry, Charlie," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I have instructions that you're not authorized to enter the building today." The words hit me like a physical blow. What? What are you talking about? I work here. I've worked here for 8 years. I know, man. I'm really sorry. But I have orders from upstairs. You need to speak with HR. I pulled out my phone and dialed our HR director, Susan Walsh. It went straight to voicemail. "Charlie Davidson calling. My badge isn't working, and security says I'm not authorized to enter the building. Please call me back immediately." I tried calling my direct manager, then my team lead, then several colleagues. Either they didn't answer, or when they did, they sounded uncomfortable and evasive. "Charlie, I'm not supposed to talk to you," my colleague David finally admitted. "Word came down this morning that you've been terminated." "I'm sorry, man. I don't know what happened." Terminated. After 8 years of excellent performance reviews, successful projects, and unwavering loyalty to the company, I had been fired without warning, without explanation, and without even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. Standing there in the parking lot, watching my former colleagues walk past me into the building where I was no longer welcome, I felt a cold rage settling in my chest. Henry Morrison had made his move. He had decided I was a threat and eliminated me before I could act. He had just made the biggest mistake of his career. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, letting the anger flow through me, then transform into something much more dangerous. Calculated determination. Henry thought he had won by firing me. What he didn't realize was that he had just freed me from any obligation to protect Technova or worry about my career there. The gloves were off now. I drove home, opened my laptop, and began crafting the strategy that would bring down Henry Morrison and everything he had built through intimidation and abuse of power. Do you think Henry made the right call by firing me? Or do you think he just made things worse for himself? I'm curious what you would have done in my position. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying the story so far. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes the most satisfying revenge is served immediately, while your opponent is still celebrating what they think is their victory. I spent exactly 3 hours planning Henry Morrison's downfall. 3 hours to research, strategize, and prepare the most comprehensive destruction of a corporate career I'd ever witnessed. First stop: employment attorney Sarah Kim in downtown Palo Alto. I'd done my research over the weekend, and Sarah specialized in Silicon Valley workplace harassment cases. More importantly, she had a reputation for taking down powerful executives who thought they were untouchable. "Mr. Davidson," Sarah said as I sat in her office that Tuesday afternoon, "what you've described and what you've shown me changes everything. This video is devastating evidence, but more than that, the way he retaliated against you for witnessing his behavior creates a powerful wrongful termination case." I had transferred the video to a secure drive and shown her the full recording. Watching her face as she absorbed Henry's predatory behavior and Lily's obvious distress confirmed what I already knew. This was career-ending material for any executive. "What's our next move?" I asked. "We're going to file complaints with multiple agencies simultaneously. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, and the local district attorney's office. But first, we're going to give Technova's board of directors a chance to do the right thing." "You think they will?" Sarah smiled grimly. "When they see this video and understand the legal exposure they're facing, Henry Morrison will be gone by Friday." But I wasn't content to just wait for legal processes to play out. Henry had made this personal when he fired me, and I was going to make sure the consequences were immediate and public. That evening, I created anonymous accounts on every major Silicon Valley gossip forum, tech industry blog, and professional networking site. I crafted carefully worded posts that didn't explicitly name Henry or Technova, but provided enough specific details that anyone in the industry would be able to figure out exactly what company and which CEO I was talking about. Has anyone else noticed concerning patterns of behavior from male executives toward young female employees at certain Menlo Park tech companies? I posted on one forum, asking for a friend who witnessed something disturbing and is wondering if this is an isolated incident or part of a larger pattern. Within hours, the responses started pouring in. Former Technova employees began sharing their own stories. Carefully worded accounts of uncomfortable interactions, inappropriate comments, and young women who had mysteriously left the company mid-project. The pieces of Henry's pattern of behavior were finally being assembled in public view. Wednesday morning, Sarah called me with an update. The board meeting has been moved up to tomorrow. Apparently, some concerning allegations have come to their attention through unofficial channels, and they want to address them immediately. Unofficial channels. It seems there's been quite a bit of chatter online about Technova's leadership. Anonymous posts, former employee testimonials, industry gossip. The board is spooked. Perfect. The pressure was building exactly as I had planned. But the real bombshell came Thursday afternoon. Sarah called me just before 5 p.m. "Charlie, you need to sit down for this. Henry Morrison submitted his resignation to the Technova board 2 hours ago, effective immediately." I had expected this outcome, but hearing it confirmed still felt surreal. Just like that. Just like that. Apparently, when the board saw the video and understood the legal implications, they gave him a choice: resign quietly with a modest severance package, or be terminated for cause and face personal legal action. He chose resignation. What about Lily? What about the other women he harassed? "That's the best part," Sarah said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "Technova is implementing a comprehensive workplace harassment prevention program. They're hiring an external firm to conduct a culture audit, and they've established a substantial fund to compensate any employees who experienced harassment. They want to settle this quietly and rebuild their reputation. And my wrongful termination case? They're offering you a full settlement, back pay, benefits, a glowing reference letter, and a substantial financial package in exchange for your silence about the specific details of Henry's misconduct. The video evidence made them realize they had no legal leg to stand on. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. I'll take it with one condition. What's that? I want Lily to be offered a full-time position with a competitive salary when her internship ends. Non-negotiable. Done. Friday morning, I woke up to a text message from Lily. Charlie, I don't know what you did, but Mr. Morrison is gone and Technova just offered me a full-time job. Thank you for keeping your promise. You saved my career and probably saved other women too. But the most satisfying moment came 3 weeks later, when I was having lunch at a cafe in downtown Palo Alto and overheard a conversation at the next table. Did you hear about Henry Morrison? One venture capitalist was saying to another. Total pariah now. No one in the valley will touch him. Word is he's moving back to the East Coast, trying to find work in traditional finance. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, the other VC replied sarcastically. I heard Technova's stock actually went up after he left. Turns out investors were more concerned about liability exposure than they were about losing his visionary leadership. I smiled to myself as I finished my sandwich. Sometimes justice moves slowly through official channels, but when you combine legal action with social pressure and public accountability, corrupt executives discover very quickly that their power isn't as absolute as they thought. Henry Morrison spent years believing he was untouchable, that his position and wealth insulated him from consequences. It took one 2-minute video and a carefully orchestrated campaign to prove him wrong. 6 months later, I started my own consulting firm specializing in workplace culture and harassment prevention. Lily, now thriving in her full-time role at Technova, was my first hire. We've built something beautiful together, a company that actually practices the values that Silicon Valley likes to preach but rarely implements. Henry Morrison thought he could silence me with termination and intimidation. Instead, he freed me to destroy everything he had built through abuse and corruption. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just serving justice. It's building something better from the ashes of what you've torn down. So what do you think? Did Henry get what he deserved? Have you ever had to stand up to a corrupt boss or witnessed workplace harassment? Share your stories in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story of workplace justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of karma coming for those who abuse their power. Trust me, you won't want to miss what I have planned for next week. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is a smartphone and the courage to use it.